insight into how this company operated. He couldn't believe that they just put him over there and forgot about it, I suppose they gave him some kind of work to do. That turned out to be the most fortunate thing that ever happened to me, because Port Boyce then was picked to go over on a team that T.A. Wilson had put together for competing for the Minuteman competition. And so Port Boyce called me over to work for him. I'm delighted. And that was where I really got acquainted with Wilson, who became chairman of the company, and all that. But I was given the job of doing the organization section for this company that's now going to build a new missile. I found out one thing that's kind of interesting. I found out that well, not only would the Air Force evaluate this, but they would use, I think it was JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, or maybe another company, but it was a private company that they were going to use as associates in evaluating the proposal. So I called personnel. I said, do we have any transfers recently from JPL, say Jet Propulsion? I think it was JPL. Anyway, I don't remember for sure. But anyway, they said, yeah, we have a fellow. I said, what level? What, the hiring as a manager? Yes. What's his level? Grade 6 or whatever. So I said, that's good. What's his phone number? So I called him. His name was George Rounds. And I said, I'd like to have you come up to where I am. I'd like to talk with you. And so he came up and I said, how is JPL organized to evaluate proposals? He gave me the whole JPL, I mean, from his mind, he gave me the whole JPL chart, how the Air Force interfaced with it, and where the contract. I said, that's good. Got my job done. So I did that.
Beats guessing.
Yeah, I more than one time I called him up and I said, how does this guy interface with this? Well, how do they work together? And so this meant that if I did that right, I could feed JPL the same system they operate to. And that's what I did. And I had to go in on a Saturday to show this to T.A. Wilson, who was who was the head of the proposal effort. I remember he was sitting at the end of this table, and his desk is here, long table here, and we didn't know each other at all. But I spread this chart out. I said, here's the concept. Well, he could see the concept quickly enough, see the blocks, how they interfaced and so forth. And in came a guy by the name of Ed Graves, chief engineer for that project. He came in, he looked at that layout, and he said, who in the hell dreamed up this monstrosity? He didn't say anything at first. Easy Gray walked around the opposite side of the table. He said, for Christ's sake, it's ridiculous. T put his feet hadn't moved off the table, he just kept looking and looking. And he used some language I wouldn't dare use, ever. But he said, look, you don't know a blank thing about what you're saying nor about what you're looking at. If you thought twice, you'd realize that this is somewhat the way the field operations interfaced. And he said, now, you came through that door, you opened it, go out through it, and close it afterward. That was my first meeting with T. Wilson.
Now, what was his? He was the
program director. He was the lead chief for that program.
Mm-hmm.
See, and he had at that time he had a vice president working over him. That was the head of. That's right. We used a totally new organization. It's called SMO, Systems Management Organization. But anyway, T liked the work. He liked me. We had many frequent get-togethers after that and different connections. But that was the fact that I befriended Port Boyce, who incidentally died shortly. I don't know why he died. He moved over to Vashon Island, and I saw it in the paper one day. Beats me what happened, but he was a young man. But he died. Anyway, by befriending him, trying to help him get his feet on the ground and understand, that's what brought me over to where I ultimately worked for T. Wilson. But anyway, back to hiring out and hiring in and so forth. The interesting thing that I mentioned this Abe Bresky, and so he said, well, maybe we should think about it. So I've already thought about it. I'm leaving. I have another job. And that's when I went to work for Sweden Freezer Company, which had certain kinds of problems, but I had some problems too. But anyway, then I hired back in working for Jim Cumming, and from then on I stayed working. But what I was going to say is that for various reasons, my position in the company went up from a bracket 1 to a bracket 2 to a bracket 3 to a bracket 4, 5, and 6 in management levels. Bracket 7 was upper level management at that time. But Abe Bresky called me one day, just out of clear day. Hi, Jim. Well, I guess you're doing quite well there. You're bringing people in. I wonder if I could ask you to consider my application. Well, I was polite, of course. I said, well, right now we're not bringing any people in.
It's an amazing environment. It sounds very much like Microsoft.
Does it?
Yeah, it's the same. A lot of vying for position, a lot of. And it seems like the most important lesson is being willing to walk away from it gives you so much power.
It sure did, yeah.
You're not afraid. So many people are afraid that if they leave, that they don't know what'll happen.
That's right.
That if you show people that you're not afraid to walk away, boy, you have the magic.
That's right.
The magic wand to do whatever
Next
you want.
time you ask them to, would you please consider transferring me? They're not so quick to come up with an answer, unless it's yes.
Yeah, exactly.
If they say it too quickly, I think, something's wrong.
What are you most proud of in working at
Nothing.
Boeing?
No, I'll tell you what I'm most proud of. I was one of the people who put together a fantastic integrated management system for information. And I had authority to go to all of the departments, whomever, like engineering. Well, engineering releases the one that heads that. So I had to see how do you schedule the releases that are coming out, because manufacturing then has to operate to those. And I'd go to manufacturing. How do you schedule the manufacturing that you're going to do? Well, it depends upon the engineering release and when I'm going to get this. So the next thing I knew, I talked to the base installation department. I talked to all of the departments that were germane. And then I was given the authority to go out and hire some consultants. That was a very smart thing to do. A guy who became the president of the transport division, a guy by the name of Dean Thornton, I offered him a job. And at the time I offered it, he said, Jim, I can't tell you how flattered I am. I am absolutely flattered, but I'm going to tell you something, and you cannot repeat it. He says, I'm going to work for the Boeing Company. I'll be working for them within maybe a week or two. And he moved into the corporation then as corporate treasurer.
Wow, that's a...
Yeah, he was one of the top execs. He was a guy working with Touche Ross at the time. Touche Ross was a consulting firm I used. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, and you asked me what was I most proud of. The achievement. John, believe it or not, we built a system that was so good that it was going to grow like the Sorcerer's Apprentice once you started.
It works and it goes on its own.
And so the problem was, I had the chief financial officer of the division at that time. He just stop this, he said, I'm going to pile up all the reports you caused being generated. So he got a big table in the room, and he wanted to show people this is the consequence. Well, I discovered a lot of things about information at the time. To begin with, you need a detailed schedule to see if you're going to get on first base, and you need to know, this detail. Well, pretty soon you don't care about that. You just want to know how many runs he scored. And pretty soon you say, wait a minute, how many games did we win? So the need for information goes down, down, down. I had curves to show this. So I went to T and I said, this thing is, because it could manufacture anything you want. Executive would call me and he said, Jim, we need to get a report on such and so. We not only need the days that the engineering release is going to be given on this and this and this, but we need to know what, and certain other things, what the suppliers are going to be able to provide. So before long, I had created a monster. Now the problem is, how do you control this thing? Because anybody could get anything they ask for. It's a simple matter of punching the key. So it's kind of interesting. Over the years, as time has gone by, I've found several people claim they invented MIS-D. That is what it's called. Minuteman, what do they call it? Engineering Systems. I don't remember. But anyway, the truth is that they're all right. When they say they invented it, they're absolutely right. Because what I did, I used, first of all, I used the engineering release system and the scheduling system for that. But I worked this into all the companies, and each guy contributed his part, and that's why he gets credit. That's why I have to agree. They all invented it. But anyway, the achievement of that was probably the high point. I did subsequently, because of that, I ran a kind of a wholly owned consulting firm within the company, in which I had an very interesting mix of people. I had engineers, I had mathematicians, I had an OR group that was extremely good and very accomplished group that really paved their way. And I had systems analysts. And then what happened to that? A guy who had been sent to the MIT management school came back on. He's aboard all of a sudden, and the organization that I'm in now, I was working for a guy who was an assistant vice president. They're all reporting to Harry Goldie. I knew Harry. I went and talked to him, but he wouldn't even listen. I said, let me show you the achievement. No, I know people who want your people. So-and-so wants me with Preston Smith, who's the director of finance. He wants him and him. Let him go. So-and-so's mathematics. And so on the first day he came back, he just eliminated the organization.
Sounds like a feeding frenzy in a fish tank.
Yeah.
They just, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a company for you. It's not.
So Harry Goldie was bound and determined he was going to be the next vice president. I don't think he ever made it. I may be wrong. I don't remember. But
it's a pretty serious game that people play.
Oh, it's extremely serious.
And they don't. It's not. It is not based on the best results. It is not
well,
always
they don't take
based.
time to look at the best results.
Yeah.
They've got their mind made up.
Politics.
And this looked like the greatest achievement for me personally.
It's a power game.
That's right. So
if you don't know that too, you cannot negotiate a big company. You don't have to involve yourself in it, but you have to understand that that's a
right.
If you're blind to that, then you really stand a good chance of getting hurt in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Because you have to know that those dynamics are going on, other than people that are genuinely trying to do the best thing for the company. But you get that, and you get people that have giant egos and are trying to do the best thing for them.
Right.
And that's just the way it works.
Hey, that's it.
It's just the way it works.
That's right. Anyway, so from there, when I had this consulting firm, it did a lot of very interesting things and interesting kinds of problems. Lyle Wood, who was the vice president of that group, one time he said, every time I go to luncheon or go out with somebody, they want to know, why don't you hire my company to do the trucking? So I put a couple of guys on it to study it out, see whether they should own their own trucking fleet or whether they should rent it out. showed the advantages, disadvantages, the number of halls, how much it's repair costs, and so forth. So that answered it, you know. And he decided, the company decided to do their own trucking. Anyway, we had interesting, some of them were fascinating. I had an interesting group of people, and one of them used in the world of mathematics and operations research is something called linear programming that showed the way that you can use a computer to get to an answer that you want, and you have multiple answers out here. It was an interesting kind of problem because here we are developing 5 different missile bases. Okay, you're going to have people at these missile bases. You got to have trailers for them. So I don't know, you know, they wanted to know, well, how, do we move these trailers, or do we buy new ones, or do we repair the cost of moving them, undergo all that, and then how is it going to phase with the schedule? How are we going to do that? Well, here's a very complex problem. Anyway, the interesting thing is that Neil McCormick, who used to live just down the street, is the head of facilities, and his people work, he had about 30 people working on this project to try to figure it out. And I said, you know, for some computer time, I can save you a lot of money. I had a lot of faith that my people could do this because I could see what they were doing. And so he said, okay, we'll run you a contest. I'll have my people work on this, and you say you'll have 2 or 3 people working on this with computer time. Yeah. Okay, and then we'll take a look at the end of, I don't know, 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever. Well, the use of the computer clearly won the game. Just absolutely. It wasn't even a contest.
Is that the first time you
Ever put
knew
people head to head?
and sort of knew the power of computing? So
Well, not the
a
first
glimpse,
time.
a
No, I
glimpse
knew
into
it
it.
when we got this schedule system, because that's what we were using. The most sophisticated computer we had at the time. I can't remember the designation, but man, you know, I learned what the power of computing was early on from that standpoint. Anyway, Neil gave up, and that's just one. He got, oh man, I had a lot of letters from the Air Force saying congratulations, it's the most scientifically advanced thing we've had going in the Air Force. The only thing that got me, a lot of these people, they never wanted to go down and thank the guy who did it. I had a guy, his name was Otis Simpson. I got a call one day from an executive over in the transport division, and he says, I got to borrow Otis Simpson. Can I borrow him? And I said, you can borrow him. What do you need him for, you know, natural. And I want to guarantee that I'm going to get him back in, 3 months? I don't remember. Okay. And our word was good, you know. So Odie went over there to work, over to Renton to work. And then I got a call one day, and he said, well, he's coming back. And, you know, he says, this guy has saved the company and the Air Force particularly millions of dollars. How so? You know, we've been using common tooling, our wing jigs, fuselage, and so forth. We use the same jigs that we use to build commercial airplanes that we're using to build Air Force transports. And he said, the Air Force is saying, we've got to see a better system for how much we have to pay. You know, you can look at the total tooling cost, and you can add that up quickly enough, but you've got to have a system that will identify what the cost is to the Air Force and what the cost is to Boeing. And that's what Otis did. And that was another case where the Air Force had written a letter, you know, extreme, the best scientific system we've ever seen.
But you really had one person that was doing it.
One guy, that's right.
And often that guy's not the guy that gets the credit, it's the...
See, that's right. And I've seen more of those things. You know, I could say, Odie, come on in, let me tell you. And yet you can't even give him the money effort that, oh, there's no point. You know, he saves the company millions of dollars, and the Air Force is not willing to pay the millions of dollars for this, and the Air Force saved more than Boeing did, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, those are fun things to work on. As to which I'm proudest of, I don't know. I've often said that, you know, if I had to go out and apply for a job, there's no job I could get. Because the only thing that I had going for me was knowledge of how Boeing management worked.
You knew the system, and and you knew how to work the system to get results.
That's right.
That's an invaluable skill.
That's the answer.
Well, I think we should wrap up for now. I need to get going.
Good.
And we'll pick it up again next week.
Okay, see if I can think of something more to tell stories about.
I think there's plenty more. That's another 50 minutes.